Joining us now is Elizabeth Warren. She's Republican Scott Brown's likely Democratic opponent this November. She's also the creator, of course, of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Elizabeth Warren, thank you so much for your time tonight. It's nice to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me here.
Jim Braude there from New England Cable News was essentially characterizing your position on this issue to Senator Brown. So let me ask you in your own words what you think Senate Republicans, including Scott Brown, are trying to do on this contraception issue right now.
Well, let's just start with what the statute says. The statute says that, in effect, any employer or any insurance company can decide that it has a personal moral objection to providing any kind of health care coverage for anyone, and therefore they're not going to do it. So if your employer says, you know, I don't like that vaccine thing, I'm just going to have an insurance policy that doesn't cover it for your children. Or I don't like the fact that, you know, having cardiovascular disease is because you didn't exercise enough or eat the right foods when you were growing up. So I'm just going to exempt all that from my health insurance policy, and I'm going to exempt this, and I'm going to exempt this other thing, and, you know, what we've got left, maybe not much, but that's just too bad. You're out there on your own now.
Do you think that this is not so much a contraception issue as it is an effort to undermine the health insurance system, or at least to undermine national health reform?
Well, I mean, just look at the words. They start out with religious, and then they add any moral objection by the employer or by the insurance company, which, you know, is pretty broad, and then it's for any kind of coverage for any kind of person. So, in effect, this is a kind of the employer designs the health insurance system, or the insurance company does it. And, of course, I'm sure there's no employer or health insurance company that would decide they just have a moral objection to covering expensive things or costly things. But that's certainly what this is an open invitation for. I mean, really, when you read the language, it's just stunning.
There is a state-level regulation in Massachusetts that is essentially exactly the same as the position the Obama administration now holds, which is that contraception must be covered in prescription drug coverage. There is an exemption for religiously affiliated employers. Senator Brown, as a state senator, voted for that in Massachusetts. That's the situation that a lot of these critics of the Obama administration's policy are in, including people like Mitt Romney and Mike Huckabee and a lot of other people who have supported these things in the past but are suddenly offended by this policy now. What do you make of that turnaround?
You know, look, this is just a cold political calculation that they can appeal to the employers and the insurance companies who might not want to spend money, and at the same time try to stir up some kind of misinformation among people of good faith, religious people, by calling this an attack on religion. And, you know, I think this is why people really hate politics. This isn't about trying to find a solution. President Obama found a solution. He found a place where people of conviction were not going to be put in a position of supporting health care coverage that covered something that they had a religious objection to, and at the same time making sure everyone stayed covered, including that women stayed covered for basic health care services. There is a solution on the table. This problem is solved. But if you really frame the problem as we want red meat politics, then that's what the Blunt Amendment is about, and that's what all of this stirring around and trying to call this an attack on religion, and really trying to slip in something like the Blunt Amendment that says, how about a direct attack on what kind of care people may really need?
I have asked Senator Brown to come on this show multiple times, including today. So far, he never has. I live in hope. You are very close with him in the polls in Massachusetts now. When you're campaigning, what are Massachusetts residents telling you is important to them? Are you hearing from people who are concerned that there is a religious liberty infringement here, as they may have heard from Republicans in Washington? What are you hearing are people's concerns around the state?
Well, you know, I'm all over the state. I mean, that's part of the fun of doing this, is you get out and you're in Pittsfield and Salem and lots of different places. People want to talk about economic issues. That's what's principally in front of them. You know, they recognize that the middle class is getting slammed and they don't like what Washington is doing. But this issue has now heated up suddenly around trying to deny women access to basic health care coverage. And what I'm suddenly seeing is lots of people are coming, for example, to our website, ElizabethWarren.com, and they're saying, wait a minute, I need to pay attention. There's an even bigger threat here. Senator Brown wants to roll back the clock. He wants to go back to a time when a handful of men decided what kind of access to health care coverage women were going to get. He wants to roll back to a time when it's the employer who gets to pick and choose who's going to have health care coverage and what kind of coverage they're going to have. And folks around here really don't like that. And so there's a lot of activity around this just really in the last 48 hours.
Elizabeth Warren, Democratic Senate candidate from Massachusetts. Thank you so much for your time. It's always a real pleasure to have you here.